The moment you swallow a fish oil capsule, something quiet but powerful begins, not a dramatic jolt, but a slow biological conversation between your cells and time itself. Inside that small dose of omega-3 fats, the body finds a signal it recognizes, a signal it has been waiting for in a modern diet often stripped of it. As digestion releases EPA and DHA into the bloodstream, these fats don't rush. They integrate, they slide into cell membranes, subtly changing how cells communicate, how flexible they remain, how calmly they respond to stress. In many ways, fish oil doesn't force the body to do something new. It reminds it how it was designed to function. When fish oil becomes part of daily intake, its most fundamental action begins at the cellular level, where life's smallest structures decide how well the whole organism functions. Every cell in the body is wrapped in a membrane made largely of fats, and the quality of those fats determines how flexible, responsive, and intelligent that membrane can be. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil, particularly EPA and DHA, are incorporated directly into these membranes, replacing more rigid fats that dominate modern diets. As this shift occurs, the membrane becomes more fluid, allowing receptors to move more freely, signals to transmit more efficiently, and nutrients to enter and exit with less resistance. This is not an abstract biochemical change. It is a physical improvement in how cells listen and respond to their environment. As membranes become more adaptable, communication between cells begins to improve in subtle but meaningful ways. Hormones bind more effectively to their receptors. Enzymes operate with greater precision, and inflammatory signals are less likely to spiral out of control. The body starts behaving less like a system under constant threat and more like one operating with quiet confidence. Even insulin signaling, immune responses, and muscle contraction rely on this membrane flexibility, meaning the effects of fish oil ripple outward into multiple systems without targeting any single one aggressively. What makes this process remarkable is its universality. Every organ benefits because every organ is made of cells, and every cell depends on the integrity of its membrane. The heart beats more efficiently, not because it is pushed harder, but because its cells exchange ions more smoothly. Muscles recover not because inflammation is suppressed unnaturally, but because repair signals are transmitted with greater clarity. Even skin, vision, and metabolic regulation quietly reflect these internal upgrades. Over time, this cellular refinement creates a body that reacts less impulsively and adapts more gracefully. Stressors that once triggered exaggerated responses now meet membranes capable of moderating the signal before chaos spreads. In this way, fish oil does not act like a stimulant or a shield, but like a skilled translator, improving the language spoken between cells so the body can coordinate itself with greater intelligence and harmony, allowing biological systems to function with a sense of internal coherence that feels less strained and more aligned with the rhythms of long-term health and cellular memory. In MotionX, when fish oil is taken consistently, one of its most meaningful influences unfolds in the realm of inflammation, a process that is often misunderstood as purely harmful, when in reality, it is essential for survival. Inflammation is the body's emergency language, a rapid response system designed to protect, repair, and adapt. Problems arise not when inflammation exists, but when it lingers without resolution, quietly exhausting tissues and accelerating decline. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil step into this system not as blunt suppressors, but as regulators, influencing how inflammatory signals are initiated, amplified, and eventually brought to rest. At the biochemical level, omega-3 cells alter the balance of signaling molecules derived from fatty acids. When the body relies heavily on certain dietary fats, it tends to produce compounds that prolong inflammatory reactions. Fish oil shifts this internal chemistry, encouraging the formation of mediators that actively guide inflammation toward resolution. This means the immune system still responds when needed, but it learns how to stand down once the job is done. The result is a calmer internal environment where tissues are no longer bathed in constant, low-grade inflammatory noise. As this balance improves, the effects become noticeable in places where chronic inflammation often hides. Joints may feel less stiff upon waking, not because pain is masked, but because the underlying inflammatory tone has softened. Muscles recover more efficiently after exertion. Connective tissue repairs itself with less friction, and organs experience fewer micro-insults that accumulate silently over years. Even blood vessels benefit, as reduced inflammatory signaling helps preserve their elasticity and inner lining. What makes this process especially powerful is its subtlety. Omega-3s south do not shut inflammation off. They teach it timing and proportion. The immune system becomes more discerning, less reactive to minor triggers, and better able to conserve energy for genuine threats. This shift supports long-term resilience rather than short-term relief, aligning the body with a slower, more sustainable model of health. Over months and years, this gentle recalibration influences how aging itself unfolds. Cells experience fewer inflammatory disruptions. Repair mechanisms operate in a less hostile environment, and the body spends more time in a state of maintenance rather than defense. Fish oil, in this sense, supports a form of internal diplomacy, helping biological systems negotiate peace instead of remaining locked in endless low-level conflict, allowing the human body to move through time with less internal resistance and greater biological grace as equilibrium gradually replaces chronic alarm. When fish oil becomes a steady presence in daily life, its influence reaches deeply into the brain, an organ uniquely rich in fat and exquisitely sensitive to the quality of those fats. DHA, one of the primary omega-3s south found in fish oil, is not merely a nutrient for the brain but a structural component of it. Neuronal membranes rely on DHA to maintain fluidity, and when this fluidity is preserved, neurons communicate with greater efficiency and less metabolic strain. Signals travel more smoothly across synapses. Receptors respond with greater precision, and the brain's electrical rhythms stabilize in ways that support clarity rather than reactivity. Over time, this structural support translates into functional resilience. The brain becomes better equipped to handle stress, not by dampening emotion, but by regulating it. Neurotransmitter systems involved in mood, motivation, and focus operate within a more balanced biochemical environment. This can manifest as steadier emotional responses, reduced mental fatigue, and an improved ability to recover from cognitive overload. Rather than pushing the brain into heightened states, fish oil allows it to conserve energy and maintain equilibrium under pressure. Inflammation within the brain, often subtle and unnoticed, also begins to shift. Omega-3s influence the immune cells of the nervous system, encouraging responses that protect neurons instead of harming them. This creates conditions that support long-term cognitive health, where neural connections are preserved rather than gradually eroded by chronic inflammatory signaling. Memory, attention, and processing speed benefit not through stimulation, but through protection and maintenance. What is especially striking is how these changes often feel indirect. People may not notice a dramatic shift in thought, but rather a quiet steadiness, a sense that mental challenges are less draining and emotional turbulence passes more quickly. The brain becomes less reactive to everyday stressors and more capable of returning to baseline after disruption. This resilience is foundational to mental well-being, particularly in a world saturated with constant sensory and emotional input. This daily nourishment supports the brain's capacity to age with dignity. Neurons remain structurally supported, communication pathways stay efficient, and the internal environment favors repair over degeneration. Fish oil, in this context, acts less like a cognitive enhancer and more like a caretaker, preserving the conditions that allow the mind to remain adaptive, grounded, and responsive as experiences accumulate in neural systems. Quietly reorganize in alignment with sustained cognitive balance and emotional continuity. When fish oil is taken consistently, the cardiovascular system begins to respond in ways that are subtle yet deeply consequential, reflecting the principle that the heart thrives not on force, but on harmony. Omega-3 fatty acids influence the composition of blood, the behavior of blood vessels, and the rhythm of the heart itself, creating conditions that reduce internal friction rather than stimulate excess activity. One of the earliest shifts occurs in the balance of blood lipids, where triglyceride levels tend to move toward a healthier range, reducing the density and turbulence of circulating fats that can burden arterial walls. As omega-3s integrate into the membranes of endothelial cells lining the blood vessels, those vessels become more responsive and elastic. This improved flexibility allows arteries to dilate and constrict with greater ease, supporting smoother blood flow and more stable blood pressure regulation. The inner lining of the vessels becomes less prone to inflammatory irritation, which is critical because much of cardiovascular decline begins not with blockage, but with chronic irritation and dysfunction at the vascular surface. By calming this internal environment, fish oil supports circulation that feels less strained and more efficient. The heart's electrical system also benefits from this biochemical influence. Omega-3 south affect ion channels involved in cardiac rhythm, subtly stabilizing the heartbeat and reducing the likelihood of irregular signaling under stress. This does not slow the heart unnaturally, but helps it maintain consistency and coordination, particularly during periods of physical or emotional demand. The result is a heart that works with steadier timing and less unnecessary effort. Equally important is the effect on blood viscosity. Omega-3 south can make platelets less prone to excessive clumping, allowing blood to flow more freely through even the smallest vessels. This improved flow enhances oxygen delivery to tissues and reduces the workload placed on the heart with each contraction. Over time, this efficiency compounds, preserving cardiac energy and supporting endurance rather than depletion. What emerges from these changes is not a dramatic sensation, but a quiet optimization. The cardiovascular system becomes less reactive to stressors and more capable of adapting to fluctuations in demand. Fish oil, in this sense, supports longevity by reducing the wear and tear that accumulates silently over decades, allowing the heart and vessels to function with a sense of ease and coordination that reflects biological intelligence at work, sustaining life through balanced circulation and rhythmic stability. Across the long continuum of human health and daily physiological demand, when fish oil becomes a daily practice rather than an occasional supplement, it reveals a deeper lesson about how health is built over time. Unlike substances that stimulate, suppress, or override natural processes, omega-3 fatty acids work by cooperating with the body's existing intelligence. They do not force change, they create conditions in which the body can make better decisions for itself. This quiet support reflects a biological philosophy that values consistency over intensity and alignment over intervention. Day after day, fish oil provides the raw materials the body uses to restore balance at the cellular level. There is no immediate signal demanding attention, no spike in energy or dramatic sensation. Instead, membranes become more responsive, signaling pathways grow more refined, and inflammatory reactions learn restraint. This gradual refinement mirrors how the body evolved to adapt. Through repeated exposure to supportive inputs rather than sudden corrective measures, health, in this view, is not an event, but a relationship maintained through small, repeated acts of care. This approach stands in contrast to modern habits that often seek rapid results. Fish oil teaches patience, both biologically and psychologically. Its effects accumulate quietly, reinforcing the idea that the most meaningful changes often happen below the threshold of awareness. Over time, the body spends less energy compensating for deficiencies and more energy maintaining equilibrium. Systems that once operated under constant stress begin to settle into a more sustainable rhythm. There is also a philosophical humility embedded in this process. Fish oil does not claim to cure or dominate complex systems. Instead, it supports the body's capacity to self, acknowledging that health emerges from cooperation among countless interacting processes. By nourishing these processes gently, fish oil respects the complexity of human biology rather than attempting to simplify it. As this slow support continues, the body becomes more resilient, not because it is armored against all challenges, but because it can recover more efficiently from them. Aging unfolds with less internal resistance, and daily physiological demands are met with greater composure. In this way, taking fish oil every day becomes an act of trust in the body's innate wisdom, a reminder that longevity is often built not through aggressive correction, but through steady nourishment that allows biological systems to express their natural capacity for balance, continuity, and adaptive strength across the unfolding span of human life and internal renewal.